Welcome back with another exciting video. Enjoy watching and don't forget to like and leave a comment.
What if one of the most terrifying discoveries in American history was never officially explained? What if deep beneath an abandoned town in the United States, something ancient was still alive? Tonight's story is based on mysterious reports, forgotten newspaper archives, strange disappearances, and terrifying witness testimonies that many people still refuse to believe. Because sometimes the scariest legends are the ones connected to real places. And this story begins in the cold mountains of West Virginia, where an entire town vanished from history almost overnight. In the winter of 1987, a freelance journalist named Daniel Mercer received a strange package at his apartment in Chicago. The package had no return address. Inside was an old cassette tape, several black and white photographs, and a folded map marked with a red circle deep inside the Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia. At first, Daniel believed it was some kind of prank, but the photographs disturbed him. One image showed a mining town covered in snow. Another showed a church with all of its windows shattered from the inside. And the final photograph showed something that made Daniel feel sick the moment he saw it. A dark tunnel entrance carved directly into the mountain. Above the tunnel, someone had painted 3 words in white paint: "Do not enter." On the back of the photograph, written in faded ink, were the words, "They woke it up." Daniel had spent years investigating unsolved mysteries across America. Most of the stories turned out to be exaggerations or local legends, but something about these photographs felt real. The cassette tape contained only static for almost 2 minutes. Then suddenly, a terrified male voice whispered, "If anyone finds this, don't go below the mine. Please, it isn't human." The tape ended there. No name, no explanation, only silence. Daniel became obsessed. Within days, he traveled to West Virginia searching for the location marked on the map. The nearest town he could find was a nearly abandoned place called Black Hollow. Black Hollow did not appear on most modern maps anymore. According to local records, the town had once been a successful coal mining community during the 1940s and 1950s. Nearly 600 people had lived there at its peak. Then suddenly, people began disappearing. Families left overnight, businesses closed, and by 1972, Black Hollow was almost completely abandoned. Locals in nearby towns refused to talk about it. Some claimed the mines were cursed. Others said the government sealed part of the mountain after a deadly accident, but nobody agreed on what really happened. When Daniel finally arrived in Black Hollow, snow covered nearly every road. Most buildings were collapsing from age and neglect. Rusted cars sat frozen in place like forgotten relics from another era. The entire town felt dead. No birds, no animals, nothing. As the sun disappeared behind the mountains, Daniel noticed something strange. Every house in town had the exact same symbol painted somewhere near the entrance, a circle with 3 lines crossing through the center. He photographed the symbol repeatedly, feeling increasingly uneasy. At the far end of town, he discovered the old church from the photograph. The windows were indeed shattered outward from inside the building. Inside the church, every wooden pew had been overturned. Strange burn marks covered the floor near the altar. And behind the altar, Daniel found dozens of handwritten names carved into the wall. Most of the names had dates beside them. The dates seemed random until Daniel noticed something horrifying. Every date matched a known disappearance from Black Hollow. Then he saw the final message scratched deeply into the wood. They come from below. A freezing wind suddenly moved through the church. Daniel turned quickly. For a split second, he thought someone was standing near the doorway, a tall figure, completely motionless. But when he looked again, it was gone. That night, Daniel stayed inside the only motel still operating 20 miles from Black Hollow. The owner of the motel was an elderly woman named Margaret. When Daniel mentioned Black Hollow, her expression immediately changed. "You went there?" she asked quietly. Daniel nodded. Margaret locked the front door before speaking again. "You need to leave this place." Daniel asked her what happened in Black Hollow. At first, she refused to answer, but after several minutes of silence, she finally spoke. In 1948, miners deep inside Black Hollow discovered a hidden tunnel far below the coal shafts. The tunnel did not appear natural. Its walls were smooth like polished stone, and strange symbols covered every surface. Workers reported hearing noises beneath the mountain at night. Whispers, scratching sounds, screams. Then the deaths began. Miners vanished underground without explanation. Some survivors claimed they saw human-like figures moving in complete darkness without flashlights. Others claimed something was living beneath the mine. The company blamed gas leaks and paranoia, but the disappearances continued. Then came the incident in 1968. One winter night, the church bell rang continuously for nearly 3 hours. When townspeople investigated, they found the church empty, except for blood covering the floor near the altar. 17 people vanished that night. None were ever found. After that, the government arrived. Roads were blocked, parts of the mountain were sealed, and Black Hollow slowly disappeared from public memory. Margaret leaned closer to Daniel. "My brother worked in those mines," she whispered. "He said they uncovered something ancient, something buried long before America even existed." Daniel asked her if she believed the stories. Margaret looked directly at him. "I know they're true." The next morning, Daniel returned to Black Hollow, determined to locate the tunnel entrance from the photograph. After several hours searching through snow-covered trails, he finally found it hidden behind collapsed mining equipment near the mountainside. The words, "Do not enter," were still visible above the entrance. The air flowing from inside felt unnaturally cold. Daniel switched on his flashlight and stepped into the darkness. The tunnel descended deeper than expected. Old mining tracks disappeared beneath layers of dust. As Daniel moved further underground, he began noticing strange markings carved into the walls. The same circular symbol from the houses, again and again, everywhere. After nearly 40 minutes underground, he reached a massive steel door covered with rust. The door was clearly sealed shut decades earlier, but now it stood partially open. Something had forced it from the inside. Daniel's heartbeat accelerated. Beyond the door, the tunnel changed completely. The rough mining walls disappeared. Instead, smooth black stone stretched endlessly into darkness. The architecture looked impossibly ancient. Nothing resembled modern construction. It felt older than history itself. As Daniel continued forward, his flashlight suddenly flickered. Then came the sound, a distant metallic scraping noise echoing through the tunnel, slow, rhythmic, like something dragging itself across stone. Daniel froze. The noise stopped immediately. Silence returned. Then, whispering, very faint at first, multiple voices speaking simultaneously somewhere deep in the darkness. Daniel could not understand the words, but the voices sounded human and completely wrong at the same time. His flashlight flickered again. For one horrifying second, he saw movement ahead, tall figures standing motionless in the tunnel, too thin to be human, their limbs unnaturally long. Then, darkness swallowed them again. Daniel stumbled backward, breathing heavily. He told himself exhaustion was affecting his mind, but deep inside, he knew he had seen something real. As he continued deeper underground, he discovered an enormous chamber hidden beneath the mountain. The ceiling stretched so high, his flashlight could not reach it. Ancient stone pillars surrounded the room, and in the center stood a massive circular pit descending into complete darkness. Around the pit, hundreds of symbols covered the floor, the same symbols found throughout Black Hollow. Daniel suddenly realized something terrifying. The town had not used those symbols for decoration. They were warnings. Near the edge of the pit, Daniel found old government equipment abandoned decades earlier. Film reels, broken radios, military crates, and human bones. Some of the bones still wore fragments of mining uniforms. Then his flashlight illuminated something that nearly stopped his heart. A tape recorder, still intact. Daniel pressed play. Static filled the chamber. Then a desperate voice began speaking. "This is Officer Raymond Hale, March 12, 1971. We lost contact with Team B approximately 4 hours ago. Something is moving below us. We've sealed the lower tunnel, but it keeps scratching at the doors. God help us. It mimics voices." Suddenly, another voice interrupted the recording. A woman screaming, gunshots, then a loud metallic impact. Officer Hale shouted, "They aren't people anymore!" The recording ended violently. At that exact moment, Daniel heard footsteps behind him, slow footsteps. He turned around instantly. Nothing, but the whispers had returned, closer now. His flashlight began shaking in his hand. Then he heard it, a voice behind him, soft, almost friendly. "Daniel." His blood froze. No one should have known his name. He turned again, and this time he saw it clearly. Standing near one of the stone pillars was a tall figure, shaped vaguely like a human. Its skin looked pale gray. Its arms hung too long, and its face looked unfinished, as if it were trying to copy a human appearance, but failing. The creature tilted its head unnaturally. Then it smiled. Daniel ran. The whispers erupted throughout the chamber as more shapes emerged from the darkness around the pit. Dozens of them, moving silently, their bodies twisted and unnatural. But the worst part was their voices. Each creature spoke using perfectly copied human voices. Children, women, old men. Some cried for help, others laughed. One sounded exactly like Margaret, another sounded like Daniel himself. Daniel sprinted through the tunnels in complete panic, while the creatures followed silently behind him. The flashlight flickered violently as whispers echoed from every direction. "Don't leave! Help us! Come back!" At one point, Daniel looked behind him and saw several figures crawling across the tunnel walls like insects. Their movements were impossibly fast. He nearly fell trying to escape. Finally, Daniel reached the old steel door and slammed it shut behind him. Immediately, violent scratching exploded against the other side. The entire tunnel echoed with inhuman screaming. Daniel ran all the way back to the surface without stopping. When he finally emerged from the mine, snow was falling heavily across Black Hollow. But something was wrong. The town no longer looked abandoned. Lights glowed inside several houses. Smoke rose from chimneys, and figures stood motionless in the streets watching him. Daniel's breathing stopped. One by one, the figures began smiling, the exact same unnatural smile. Then, every light in town suddenly went dark. Complete silence covered Black Hollow again. Daniel jumped into his car and drove away without looking back. He never returned. Months later, Daniel attempted to publish his investigation online and through several newspapers. Nobody believed him. Some editors accused him of fabricating the story. Others refused to discuss Black Hollow at all. Then, strange things started happening. Daniel noticed people watching him outside his apartment at night. His phone sometimes played whispering sounds during calls. Several photographs from the mine disappeared mysteriously. And one evening, Daniel returned home to find 3 words written across his bathroom mirror: "We followed you." According to public records, Daniel Mercer disappeared in October 1988. His apartment was found empty. No signs of struggle, no body, no explanation. Only a single cassette tape left behind on his desk. The tape contained several minutes of static, then one final message, a terrified whisper: "They're learning how to look like us." Years after Daniel Mercer vanished, the story of Black Hollow became little more than an obscure internet rumor buried deep inside conspiracy forums and forgotten paranormal websites. Most people dismissed it as fiction, another creepy American legend, another ghost story invented to entertain late-night listeners online. But in 2006, nearly 18 years after Daniel disappeared, a young documentary filmmaker named Claire Bennett became obsessed with the mystery after discovering copies of Daniel's missing photographs inside a retired journalist's storage locker in Pennsylvania. Claire specialized in investigating unsolved disappearances across America. Unlike most filmmakers, she focused heavily on official records, police reports, witness interviews, and abandoned locations that people were too afraid to revisit. And Black Hollow immediately stood out to her, because according to official government records, the town technically never existed. There were no detailed census archives, no school records, no birth certificates for many residents. Even the old mining company connected to the town had mysteriously dissolved in the early 1970s. It was as if someone had deliberately erased Black Hollow from American history. That alone convinced Claire there was something worth investigating. But one detail disturbed her more than anything else. Daniel Mercer's final cassette tape had never been publicly released, yet somehow people online knew exactly what he had supposedly said before disappearing. "They're learning how to look like us." Claire wanted answers. In October 2006, she assembled a small film crew and traveled toward West Virginia. Her team included sound engineer Marcus Reed, cameraman Ethan Cole, and local mountain guide Robert Hayes, a quiet man in his late 60s who knew the Appalachian region better than anyone. The moment Robert heard their destination, he refused to drive any further. "You people don't understand that place," he warned quietly. Claire asked if he had ever been to Black Hollow. Robert remained silent for several seconds before answering. "My father disappeared there in 1971. Nobody in the van spoke after that. As they continued deeper into the mountains, heavy fog covered the roads. Cell phone signals disappeared completely. By sunset, they reached the edge of Black Hollow. The town looked even worse than Daniel's old photographs. Most buildings had collapsed entirely. Telephone poles leaned at impossible angles. Rust covered nearly every surface. Yet something about the place still felt strangely alive. Claire noticed fresh footprints in the snow leading between several houses, but there were no vehicles nearby, no signs of residents, nothing. Marcus attempted recording ambient sound for the documentary, but quickly became uncomfortable. "There's something weird with the audio here," he whispered. Claire listened through the headphones. At first, she heard only wind, then faintly beneath the static, whispering. Dozens of overlapping voices. Some sounded distant, others sounded extremely close. One voice repeated the same phrase again and again, "Go below." Marcus immediately removed the headphones. That wasn't there a second ago. Claire tried to remain calm, but even Ethan looked visibly disturbed. As night approached, the crew entered the abandoned church Daniel Mercer had described decades earlier. Inside, the walls were now covered with hundreds of symbols drawn in black paint. The circular symbol with 3 crossing lines. Some looked fresh. Claire slowly walked toward the altar. Then she froze. New names had been carved into the wall beneath the older disappearances. Tourists, researchers, urban explorers, even police officers. The dates continued all the way into 2004. People were still disappearing here. Suddenly, Ethan called from another room. "You guys need to see this." Behind the church, hidden beneath fallen debris, Ethan had discovered a locked basement door partially buried under dust and broken wood. The lock had been destroyed recently. Claire opened the door carefully. A cold wave of air rushed upward from the darkness below. The basement stairs descended deeper than expected, much deeper. Robert immediately backed away. "No," he whispered, "we leave now." Claire asked what was wrong. Robert stared into the darkness with absolute terror in his eyes. That tunnel shouldn't be there. Ignoring his warning, the crew descended into the underground passage. The tunnel beneath the church connected directly to the old mining system beneath Black Hollow. Unlike the surface buildings, these tunnels looked strangely untouched by time. The deeper they walked, the more disturbing things became. Symbols covered every wall, burn marks scarred the ceilings, and occasionally they discovered piles of old belongings scattered across the ground. Shoes, flashlights, old cameras, children's toys. Eventually, Claire noticed something horrifying about the tunnel walls. Thousands of tiny scratches covered the stone, as if countless fingernails had clawed against them for years. Marcus suddenly stopped walking. "Did you hear that?" Everyone froze. Far ahead in the darkness came the sound of metal slowly scraping across stone, the exact same sound described in Daniel Mercer's notes. Robert panicked immediately. "We're leaving." But before anyone could respond, the tunnel lights attached to Ethan's camera battery suddenly failed. Darkness swallowed the tunnel instantly. Then came the voices, whispers from every direction. Some begged for help, some cried, others laughed softly. Claire felt something brush past her shoulder inside the darkness. Ethan switched on a backup flashlight, and for one horrifying second, the beam illuminated a human figure standing at the far end of the tunnel. Tall, thin, completely motionless, its face hidden in darkness. Then it moved backward unnaturally fast and disappeared around the corner. Marcus cursed under his breath. Claire's hands shook violently as she continued filming. The crew followed the tunnel deeper underground until they finally reached the massive steel door Daniel Mercer had once described. Only now, the door hung completely open. Deep claw marks covered the metal surface, and around the doorway, someone had painted a warning in large white letters: "Don't let them hear you." Beyond the door stretched the ancient black stone tunnels hidden beneath the mountain. The air smelled rotten, warm, almost biological. Robert refused to continue. He remained near the steel door, holding a flashlight, while the others moved deeper inside. The architecture underground made no sense. Massive hallways carved from polished black stone extended endlessly beneath the earth. No mining tools could have created structures like these. Claire noticed strange carvings along the walls, depicting human figures kneeling before tall shadow-like beings with hollow faces.
Some carvings appeared thousands of years old, much older than the United States itself. Marcus examined one carefully. These things were worshipped. Claire suddenly realized something chilling. What if Black Hollow wasn't where the creatures were discovered? What if it had been built there intentionally? As they entered a larger chamber, Ethan's camera suddenly malfunctioned. The screen filled with static. Then distorted faces briefly appeared across the monitor. Human faces, screaming silently. Marcus stepped backward slowly. "Guys!" At the far side of the chamber stood several figures watching them, at least 6, completely still. The flashlight beam revealed pale gray skin and long, twisted limbs. Their faces looked almost human now, too human, as if they had improved over time. One creature stepped forward into the light and spoke using a perfect imitation of Claire's voice. "Don't be afraid." Claire nearly dropped the camera. The creature smiled unnaturally wide. Then all the others copied the smile simultaneously. Ethan began panicking. "We need to go now." The creatures moved instantly, faster than anything human. Marcus screamed as one appeared directly beside him out of nowhere. The flashlight spun wildly across the chamber. Claire heard bones snapping. Ethan dragged her backward while Marcus continued screaming somewhere in the darkness. Then the screaming stopped suddenly. Silence. Absolute silence. Claire looked back just in time to see Marcus standing motionless beside the creatures, his head tilted unnaturally, his face expressionless. Then, slowly, Marcus smiled, the exact same impossible smile. Ethan grabbed Claire and ran. Behind them, Marcus began speaking in a calm, emotionless voice. "Come back." More footsteps echoed through the tunnels around them. The creatures were everywhere now. Some crawled across ceilings, others moved silently along the walls, and every single one spoke using stolen human voices. Robert, Marcus, children, women, even Daniel Mercer's voice. The tunnels became a nightmare of whispers and movement. At one point, Claire saw dozens of pale faces emerging from the darkness inside the walls themselves, watching, smiling, waiting. When Ethan and Claire finally reached the steel door, Robert was gone. Only his flashlight remained on the ground, and beside it, fresh blood smeared across the stone. The whispers grew louder behind them. Ethan slammed the steel door shut with all his strength, while Claire searched desperately for another exit. Then came the scratching, violent scratching from the other side. The metal door shook repeatedly as inhuman screams echoed through the tunnels. Claire and Ethan barely escaped back to the surface before sunrise. But the town of Black Hollow no longer appeared abandoned. Figures stood silently inside nearly every window, watching them, smiling. Some looked human, some did not. Claire realized with horror that she could no longer tell the difference. As Ethan started the van, Claire noticed someone standing near the church. Marcus, or something pretending to be Marcus. He waved slowly, still smiling. The crew's footage was never officially released. According to reports, Ethan Cole died in a car accident 2 weeks later under mysterious circumstances.
Claire Bennett vanished 6 months afterward while editing the documentary in New York. Police found her apartment completely empty, except for hundreds of symbols drawn across the walls, and one final message written repeatedly over every mirror in the apartment. They are above ground now.